Alright, I'm back again. As you can tell, I'm in a different vehicle. I'm only bringing this up because this thing has horrible suspension. It's a truck. It's not going to be the most comfortable thing in the world to drive, and you're going to have some bouncing around. Oh well. Hopefully the car will be fixed and ready to go for tomorrow. Speed sensor decided to go out on it, so yeah, I kind of like knowing how fast I'm going reliably. Also, since that ties into the transmission, there was an instance or two where I was accelerating from a red light, and it was intermittent failure, and that there was a time or two it decided to fail while I was accelerating. I was stopping, it just like went into neutral basically, like, yeah, no, this ain't gonna cut it. Anyway, the big news for today is not that. The big news is that it's not even actually anything to do with Trump. The big news is that America's credit rating has been downgraded again from AAA to AA+. Now, you may be wondering what the ramifications of this will be. Honestly, I know there for a while stocks took a tumble. I don't know if they've rebounded. It's been crazy at work. The big takeaways would be this, or the big takeaway is this. The America's best days, at least in the country we have known up to this point, they're pretty much over. Our elected officials, and let's face it, unelected officials too, in Washington, they've done a pretty good job of screwing this country up. With the national debt that we have, there's no coming back from that without a major reset. That's how I'll put it. Think this will be probably on par with what happened at the fall of the Soviet Union. There's no way I foresee to get around it. And the reason I say this is the only ways we could ever have a snowball's chance in hell would be to make multiple drastic cuts to the budget, cuts across the board, and it would be cuts that some of the cuts no one would ever dream of making, because it would be a death sentence. And that's the unfortunate thing is it could have been avoided, but at this point, with no one willing to make the drastic cuts that would be needed, there's no stopping what's going to come. And anyway, even if you did make the cuts that would be necessary, it would still lead to the end of America as we know it. superpower. Our status is I think it's the world reserve currency, primarily the petrol dollar. I can't talk today. Petrol dollar would be done for. So that whole notion, basically we would have to be willing to accept that we'd have to go from a first world country to a second world country officially. And truth be told, I think the majority of the country, or a large chunk of the country, is already there, with parts of the country in a third world country status. So, yeah, that's the big, joyful, wondrous event. If they had been serious about balancing the budget and all that crap, 20 years ago, we'd be doing pretty good. 30 years ago, we'd be doing really good, even better. Heck, if they had even tried it, started getting serious 10 years ago, we would have a fighting chance. But as is, with the politicians we've got, with how kind of spoiled we've gotten as a people with how things are going, basically carte blanche on the budget, I don't foresee it coming back. And yes, we are spoiled. We have people whining because the government's not just handing out money to people every month, to everyone every month. So let's not pretend that there's not a large swath of the country that's not spoiled. They are. And the thing is, so when I say there need to be drastic cuts, I mean it would be everywhere. You're talking cuts to the social welfare state. You're going to be talking cuts to the military budget, foreign aid. I mean, it would be possible if they really wanted to save this country. It would be possible. But the number of politicians that would make those cuts that would survive the next election cycle, it wouldn't be much at all. I don't even know if... And there would probably be politicians fleeing the country for their lives if they actually went through and made the changes that they needed to make. And the thing is, if they had been serious and started making those changes a long time ago, the changes they would need to make now would be nowhere near as drastic. Think of it as the operation of a fulcrum. A pivot fulcrum, like a door or a gate. And consider the time factor of when the debt started being an issue. Consider that the door frame, or where the hinge is located, whether you're talking a gate or door or what have you. If when you were closer Two, and let me clarify one thing. Let the amount of distance, well, the width of the door would be the amount of time that has passed from when the debt became an issue, or the fulcrum point. And with the amount of distance that would need to be covered as it pivots, that would be kind of the how much changes and cuts you would need to make. The closer you were to that hinge point, the lesser the distance you would have to travel, which means the overall less number of cuts you would need to make, less drastic cuts, that is. But the longer the door gets, or the longer the gate gets, the more the distance is that you have to traverse. And with that, the more drastic the cuts. Think of it, at my wrist, there's not a whole heck of a lot of movement going on. But when you get to the fingertips, there's more drastic movement. That's kind of how the amount of cuts that would need to be made. That's kind of how that's affected. The closer you were to that pivot point, say the budget became an issue, hypothetically, in 1990. Just because it's the first year that came to mind. If they had gone ahead and started doing something in 1990, the amount of severe cuts they would need to make would be rather minuscule. But here we are in 2023, and not only have the effects of years of raising the debt ceiling taken its toll, or the years of deficit spending have taken their toll, but they've increased that pretty much, I want to say exponentially, but it wouldn't be that far. It would be, I think you would consider, in terms of scientific notation, which would be factors of 10, and you'd probably have more than one zero added to that. So yeah, it would be, it takes its toll. It's each year, it's not like it's, we're only going to be 100 million in debt. It's this year 100 million, next year 250 million, and so on and so forth. Now we're talking trillions of dollars added every year. So to make the cuts that would be necessary to save the country, you're talking some pretty sizable gutting. It wouldn't be something that you could readily do over a period of like years. It wouldn't be something like it would be a matter of, we'd have to go through and do pretty sizable cuts pretty much right then and there, and no one's going to want to find themselves in that particular boat. Like I mentioned before, if the politicians that voted for it survived re-election, some of them would probably be leaving the country. That's my thoughts on the matter. Do you think we as a country are screwed? unfortunately, I do. And I'm not sure I like where the alternatives are heading. Anyway, let me know what you think. Like I said, I'll throw a link down below. This video is getting way too long. Sorry about the jostling about, more so than usual. Like I said, Tacomas are nowhere near a nicer ride as a Camry, even you know, older but completely paid off Camry like I drive. Yeah, later.